Hey, welcome to WACTS. This is episode 48. This week I'm covering, well, the whole year, I guess. This is just a quick wrap-up episode. I just want to reflect a little bit, talk about the fact that this whole thing started because of this guy, and this guy's here now, and it's been quite a ride, which, of course, is only just beginning. I mean, I still feel a little bit like, hey, we got a baby, that's like getting a pet, like they're just gonna be like this forever. And it's still super hard for my wife and I to wrap our brains around the fact that, like, he's going to grow up and become an adult and have, cogent thoughts of his own and be totally sentient. I mean, it's amazing how aware he is already now and how active he is. That's my cat's being crazy. And how, despite all that, he's not going to remember anything right now. In theory, I mean, maybe he's like a super genius who can remember the first few months of his life, but in all likelihood, despite all the great interactions we're having and all these experiences that my wife and I will certainly remember for the rest of our lives, he's not going to remember that, and that's kind of amazing. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. So, WACTS, Watch Alex Coulombe Talk Stuff. Again, this whole thing started as part of these yearly projects I've had going since 2013. 2013, I wanted to be a little bit more mindful about how I was spending my day, so I kept a daily journal the entire year where every day I would just note down in like bullet point format a few of the kind of meaningful things that happened that day. 2014 was all about knowing that my wife and I were going to be buying a house, and I wanted to see how my commute time changed. And of course, so I was going from like a 30 to 40 minute commute from Brooklyn to, the hour and a half to 2 hour commute that I have now. Really, it's like an hour 45 minutes to 2 hours each way. And what's interesting about that is, of course, that commute has become very productive. The blog I had there was called The Productive Commuter, and it was very cool to track the kind of stuff I was doing on the subway versus on the train, and especially in the past year, that's become very productive work. Especially tag teams really well with this guy, because ever since he's come, it's interesting to think about some of the preconceptions I had about having a kid, which things were correct, which things were a little bit different, which things I totally was unprepared for. To leave a note on the commuter blog there thing, if I had kept that blog going, one thing I definitely would have noted would have been the fact that once he was born, everything became very important during that commute, because that is some like focused time where I could be getting done freelance projects, and all sorts of things that I might have otherwise been getting done at home. But of course, this little guy takes up every moment that he's awake, and he is awake a lot. We still have not found any babies online or otherwise that have this level of awakeness during the day. I mean, he is really only sleeping, 8 hours at most during the night, usually something closer to 5 or 6, and then maybe, little 15-minute naps or so during the day, like when he's nursing or that kind of thing. But when we try to put him down, he wakes right back up. That was something we were not expecting. Like, we thought that having a baby was going to be like, oh yeah, he sleeps 21 hours a day, and then he's just up for a little bit and we nurse him and he falls back asleep. Not true at all. Like, pretty much the day we brought him home, our lives were forever changed. Of course, in a wonderful way, but very much in a way like, oh my god, we can't do anything during the day anymore. And of course, I think my wife has taken the brunt of that way more than me, because I'm still in New York City during the day. I can run errands during my lunch break and that kind of stuff. But when my wife is home with him, he really, he takes up the whole day. And in my case, like when I'm home for the weekend, he wants to be doing stuff. He wants to be reading books. He wants to be going on walks. He loves the fresh air. He wants to be hanging out. He wants to have a lot of eye contact. And it's interesting. I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but like many babies, he's very fascinated by cell phones, tablets, TV, that kind of thing. And it's really tricky to find that balance of like, oh wow, he's really interested in that stuff, but it's not good to let a baby just like stare at a screen or even like touch a screen. So on the one hand, it's like a very cheap and easy babysitter if, we need to be doing something else or just want to relax for 20 minutes. But on the other hand, there's that. Watch Alex Coulombe Talk Stuff, was about thinking about how my, I guess a little bit like my day journal, these categorical activities were going to change during the week. So, this whole thing started with me kind of talking about the different things I was doing over the course of the week, and imagining and speculating on how they might change once he came along. So, what are the categories we established? We had video games, books, movies, VR, architecture, I'm probably forgetting a few, board games, video games, all sorts of stuff. And I guess what's fascinating is even though it feels like there's a lot less time in the day when he's around, I'm still doing a lot of those things. And again, a lot of that has to do with my train ride. But, you know, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about having a baby. I wasn't sure if after it happened, I was going to be like, oh God, you know, this was too soon. I really should have waited a few years and, you know, done these other things I wanted to do with my life first. You know, I didn't know if I'd feel like I was living too far away and that like, oh God, I really need to get a job closer to home. I wasn't sure if I was going to feel really horrible about like being a bad father or something like that. And for the most part, all of those fears have gone unrealized. I really genuinely love being a dad. I feel like it's the right time for it. My wife feels the same way. You know, we're in our later 20s now. I'm 28, she's 29. And we feel established, you know, we're so lucky. We're so lucky to have a house. We're so lucky to, you know, be financially stable enough that we're not constantly worried about where our next meal is coming from. And he's amazing. This little guy brightens up our life so much. Everything he does is cute. You know, I've never thought that I would find babies adorable to the extent that I find him adorable. When he farts, it's cute. I don't think poop humor is funny, but this guy can just smile and go like, and it's like the most hilarious thing in the world. In addition to, of course, you know, some of the more civilized things. He is involved with reading books, you know, fine literature, and going on these very thoughtful walks where he looks at trees and everything and studies them, and I'm sure is thinking about, how is that tree different from that tree? And what purpose do those flying things serve? You know, I'm sure it's all very deep thoughts. But it's really wonderful. He really brightens up my day. In some ways, to make the pet comparison again, I think about how nervous I was before Liz and I got our dog Sadie, because, you know, I thought about how I grew up with dogs, and I was thinking about how much responsibility it is, and oh God, we're gonna have to walk her all the time, and you know, you focus on all the time, all the ways it's going to change your life. I guess not necessarily for the worse, but where you're realizing you're going to have to adjust your life. And, you know, of course, having Sadie was wonderful. You know, she's a rescue dog. We genuinely feel like we've made her life so much better. But then the flip side of that is I feel so much better. Like, she is a wonderful addition to our family, and, you know, I'm sure there's all sorts of studies out there about pets, like, lowering your blood pressure and all that, and it's so wonderful to have this animal that is so happy to see you and just wants to be around you and to cuddle and to be pet and be so thrilled to go on a walk outside. That's really wonderful. And there's a lot of similar stuff there with a baby. Like, yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it takes up so much time. But the rewards of it, I mean, even if he never was going to grow up, even if this wasn't, you know, a gateway into immortality, like passing on your genes and you know, being able to train a person in to do whatever kind of things that you wish you'd done, or, you know, the things parents do to their children. But even if he was just going to stay a baby like this, there was so much satisfaction to being around him and cute little things like this. What's he doing right now? He's sucking on my thumb. Why not? That's hilarious. And he's amazing. And he smiles now and he laughs, and there's this wonderful give and take of, like, you know, doing something and him reacting to it. I discovered today that I can make him stop crying whenever he's crying if I just beatbox for him. I didn't know that was going to work so consistently now, but it really does. And it's problem solving, and it's fascinating, and there's really genuine unconditional love here. Like, I think my wife and I would do anything for this guy. And, you know, okay, so going back to things that are different from how I thought they were. I was not prepared for how every day really is different. Like, he is 4 months older now, for September, October, November, December, coming up on 5. He'll be 5 months old soon, which is insane. And every day, literally every day, there's something new. He looks a little different. His hair looks different. He has new facial expressions. He's reacting to things in different ways. He's able to focus on things different ways. You know, I remember when we first had him, and he would just kind of stare kind of blankly, and there was a little bit of a connection there, but now, like, there is attention, there is focus. It's wonderful and amazing, and I just can't emphasize enough how great this whole experience has been. I always wondered how I'd like being a father. I love being a father. I love my little baby Alistair. I love the relationship that my wife and I have with him. I love the relationship that we have with each other in the company of him. It's really a remarkable experience. And to anyone out there kind of on the fence about becoming a dad or a mother, well, my wife, of course, can speak. I'm sure I've missed a bunch of stuff. But hey, I hope these videos were somewhat educational, informational, whatever. Check them out. If nothing else, it's an interesting time capsule, especially around that area though, like when we knew he'd be coming soon. You know, there's a little talk about the whole pregnancy experience, going into him right after the birth and all that. It's really kind of cool to chart, you know, those first few weeks, and then of course everything leading up to now with all the ways that he's changed. But the activities, it's interesting because, you know, beyond having a little bit less of a critical eye towards like the movies and TV and video games and all that I was involved with, I really have continued on with all the same activities I did before. Maybe I don't do it as much, maybe I think a little bit more in a focused way about how I'm going to use the time I have, because I know there's this guy to take care of. You know, if he's sleeping and my wife and I don't know if it's going to be for 20 minutes or an hour or 30 seconds, like, you better believe we are doing something useful. And useful doesn't even have to be like a chore, like today, you know, defrosting the fridge, but it could be just like, oh god, I really want to play a video game, and we'll like jump right on there. There was no lollygagging. And it's similar to my train ride, you know, sitting on a train for an hour. I focus during that time, and having a baby really snaps you into focus. When you're with him, you're very aware this is a human being, this is someone who you have responsibility for. You are going to be raising him. He is more important than you now. Like, that's it. Like, being a parent done right makes you infinitely less selfish right off the bat. Like, you are willing to do anything for this little person beyond yourself. And that's a wonderful feeling, a terrifying feeling, a hilarious feeling sometimes. It's great. But yeah, you know, it's cool how it kind of snaps your life into focus. So I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way before, but it's fascinating and cool. And now I'm rambling, so it's a good time to sign off. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a wonderful life. I'm sure, you know, he'll be making appearances in some of these other things I'm going to be doing. Check out my new series this year. The 2016 project is Watch Alex Coulombe Learn Stuff. I'm going to be taking a lot of these techniques that I'm applying towards stuff with VR. I think 2016 is going to be a huge year for VR, and, you know, everything from Photoshop to playwriting to music, and you'll just see me sit down and be like, hey, here's something I'm learning, and I'm sure this little guy will pop up in Cameo every so often because it's really cool to capture him growing up and changing a little bit on video. Here we go. This is Alex Coulombe and little baby Alistair Coulombe signing off. Have a good everything.